Lucasfilm released an official timeline book for Star Wars, and in it, the full event timeline for Luke Skywalker's life can be found on display for any fans looking to touch up on their lore. Having first been introduced in the original 1977 film, A New Hope, the character went on from the first trilogy to star in dozens of books and comics. Most recently, he even returned for the sequel trilogy and 2 different Disney Plus shows. Star Wars undoubtedly contains a lot of continuity to keep track of, so it would be completely understandable if some forgot a few important points on the hero's journey so far. That's why there's never been a better time than now for a recap. Luke and Leia Skywalker were born on Mustafar. Their mother, Padme Amidala, did not survive the process that Obi-Wan Kenobi handed Leia off to Bail Organa and his family while the Jedi Master brought Luke to be watched over by Owen and Beru Lars. When Leia Organa is kidnapped, Obi-Wan is forced to come out of exile to save her in turn. His adventures led a vengeful inquisitor named Reva Wright to Luke's doorstep. Luckily, the troubled villain decided not to follow through. Thanks to a lucky run-in with R2-D2 and C-3PO, who Luke now owns, Skywalker is pointed in the direction of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the moment Kenobi was waiting for finally arrived, as he trains the boy to become a Jedi. Additionally, Obi-Wan takes the chance to gift Luke his father's lightsaber. Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan needed a ride to Aldrin to give the rebels vital information. The duo hired Han Solo and Chewbacca, and his Millennium Falcon, to help get them to their destination. Little do they know that the scoundrel is running away from infamous crime boss Jabba the Hutt. After the Millennium Falcon is tractor-beamed and captured by the Empire, the team disguises themselves as Imperials to move around the Death Star. There, they run into Princess Leia Organa. The trio's formation would go on to change the course of the entire galaxy and signal the beginning of the end for the Empire. Luke Skywalker's mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, is struck down by Darth Vader. While devastating, the Jedi's sacrifice allows Luke and company to escape the Empire's clutches. Luke, Han, and Leia successfully get vital information to the Rebel Alliance on Yavin. The rebels get a new mission: make a 1-in-a-million shot to destroy the Death Star. Thanks to some help from the Force and his new friend Han Solo, Luke does just that, much to Darth Vader's dismay. After just barely surviving a freak accident in the freezing cold, Luke experienced a Force vision of Obi-Wan Kenobi telling him to go to the Dagobah system to find Yoda. Before he was able to act on it, and not long after Han saved his life once again, Luke went into action to help the rebels defend themselves from an assault on their formerly secret base on Hoth. This is where audiences saw the iconic AT-ATS for the very first time. Acting on his visions from Hoth, Luke made his way over to Dagobah. It doesn't take him long to find what he's looking for. Grand Master Yoda, the little green legend, began to train the Chosen One. However, the duo's training is cut short by some worrying visions. After seeing a vision of his friends in danger, Luke chose to leave Dagobah and abandon his training to save them. In doing so, Luke fell right into Darth Vader's trap. While it doesn't go exactly how the Sith had hoped, the young Jedi-to-be loses a hand and learns that the big bad is his father. Following the events of The Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker assembled a group of allies to save Han Solo, who was previously stuck in carbonite, from the treacherous gangster Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine. After a few failed attempts at communication, everyone is sentenced to death by Sarlacc pit. It doesn't go well for Jabba and his crew, as Luke and company escape after blowing up the crime boss's sand barge. Luke returned to the Dagobah system to find Yoda on the brink of death. The Jedi Master passed away at the age of 900, but not before telling Mark Hamill's hero that there is another Skywalker. After confronting a Force ghost version of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke learned that his secret sibling was none other than Leia herself. Convinced that there is still good in Anakin Skywalker, Luke surrendered to Darth Vader. The hero was then brought in front of Emperor Palpatine aboard the second Death Star. The Sith Lord tried to tempt Luke to the dark side but failed. The Emperor fried Luke with Force lighting, leading Darth Vader to betray his former master by hurling him down a reactor shaft. Shortly after the Battle of Endor, Luke Skywalker started to train Leia as a Jedi. The princess is more than proficient, besting Luke in a duel and even building her own lightsaber. After a vision of her future son's death, she chose to abandon her training altogether. After hearing Grogu's call through the Force, Luke Skywalker arrived in the nick of time to save the Mandalorian and his crew. From certain death, Mando parts with the youngling so that Luke can teach him the ways of the Force and, one day, of the Jedi. The two spent lots of time training, but eventually, Grogu decided to go back to Din Djarin instead of continuing his path to becoming a Jedi. Yet it's also revealed that at some point off-screen, before Grogu ever arrived, Luke met Ahsoka Tano, the former Padawan of his father in the Clone Wars. Luke Skywalker took on his first full-time student, Ben Solo, the child of Leia Organa and Han Solo. Technically, young Kylo Ren was Luke's third student, coming in behind Grogu and Leia. However, of the three, Ren made it the furthest. Luke sensed the dark side in Ben. His confrontation with his nephew resulted in the destruction of his new Jedi temple. In response, Luke decided that the Jedi must end, putting himself into exile on Ahch-To. Rey ventured to Ahch-To, where she discovered a wary, beaten Luke Skywalker. While he refused to return from exile, he reluctantly agreed to train her. Luke projected himself through the Force to Crate, where he stalled Kylo Ren so that Leia and the Resistance could escape the First Order's attack. Shortly after his Force projection fight with Kylo Ren, Luke Skywalker became one with the Force. Luke manifested himself as a Force spirit to offer wisdom to Rey. He then led her to where Leia's lightsaber was hidden. While Luke Skywalker might be dead at the latest point on the timeline, given how the franchise tells stories all over, he could easily come back at any point. Though, their roles could easily be swapped with more recent characters, such as those seen in The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, or the upcoming series, The Skeleton Crew.